I thought I was getting a stretch and sweep and going into labor, but I guess not. You get your hospital bags in the car, make sure your car seat is installed because you're going to hospital. Guys, welcome. Today is going to be a very unexpected video and a bit of an emotional one as well, so please bear with me for how scatterbrained this is all going to come across, but I feel like I want to make this video as well because in the future I'm going to look back on it and have an opinion on it anyway. But this is going to be the beginning of the end of my pregnancy, shall we say. And it's very unexpected, but nevertheless, here we are. If you're new here, my name is Sapphire. I am 20 years old and I was due my baby boy on the 23rd of October 2020. Miracle baby that I was told I was never gonna have, and still feels like I'm never gonna have this baby. But yes, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. If you're new here and you want to check out some more of my videos, definitely click on my channel, click subscribe, turn on the bell, you know, everything like that. Just give me a little bit of space in your subscription feed. I really appreciate it. And also, I want to just preference, if you are watching videos to kind of get an opinion on other people's births and things like that, just know that this video is very much more of a personal case, I think, and not something that I've seen when I was watching birth vlogs and things like that. So yeah, just have that as a heads up. What's happening to me right now hopefully will not happen for you. So I'm gonna kind of start from the beginning because it's kind of a long part one, but if you can't tell, still haven't had my baby boy. It is currently Tuesday the 27th of October, pretty sure that's right. And yeah, still haven't had baby boy, still not in labor, still have no signs of going into labor. But at this point I'm quite glad if I don't go into labor, because it means the rest of this could just go to last minute plans that I've planned out, and I don't have to worry about having to change plans again. Last Friday was my due date, and my obviously didn't have any signs of going into labor, and my community midwife basically made an appointment with me on Saturday the 24th, and basically it was for a stretch and sweep and to have a look of everything and just make sure baby was okay, I was okay, that sort of idea. She lays me on the bed and does like a normal palpate of the baby, and she was just very quiet, and me and my midwife chat quite a lot, so when she was really quiet I said to her, is something not right with his position? And she just looked at me and said, well, I'll be honest with you, Sapphire, I don't know what to think about this position. And she obviously, they take their two fingers in a pinching kind of motion, if you've ever had this done before, and they kind of put it above your pubic bone and feel for the baby's head and push quite firmly down into your pelvis to feel for the baby's engagement. And she couldn't feel his head engaging with my pelvis at all. Couldn't feel a bum down there, and she could not figure out what was going on in my bump. And her exact words to me were, I'm just feeling way too much baby. So she didn't feel confident enough to do a stretch and sweep and said to me, I'm gonna get in touch with the labour ward and ask them for some advice. So she went away, I sat on the table, and I kind of just sat there and was like, oh, what's happening? This is not, I thought I was getting a stretch and sweep and going into labour, but I guess not. But she said, I've been told not to give you stretch and sweep, that's just not happening. I don't really know what's happening with your presentation of the baby. And she said, I would like you to go and get a scan today. And there's a possibility that they're gonna make some sort of plan with you for delivering the baby or something like that. And it kind of just all was very quick and a bit of a shock. And she said to me, my hospital bags were already packed and things, but she'd get your hospital bags in the car, make sure your car seat is installed because you're going to hospital. And I was just kind of like, oh, I thought this was just a simple stretch and sweep. No. So anyway, I get into hospital. I think I get there about 1:45 in the afternoon, or by this time I'd been seen for a couple hours. I think 1:45 is when I kind of got out and I knew what was happening. I had a CTG placed on me for over an hour, just watching baby's heart rate, contractions, things like that. And turns out I was actually having contractions. I had no idea. No idea. Didn't even think I was having anything. If you didn't tell me I was having them, I wouldn't have had a clue. And then what happened? It was at this point though that there was one midwife who, at this time, I absolutely love her. She's kind of like not looking after me herself, but I've seen her multiple times now. But that one particular midwife on Saturday afternoon, or probably on a morning shift, but it was like coming into afternoon by the time I had seen her. She was quite concerned about how large my baby was, especially considering my size, and as much as I'm tall, I have always been like a slightly smaller frame. And she said to me, "You're just all baby in there." She said, "It's just ridiculous." Like I'd lay down and it was just baby. There wasn't even bump, there was just baby. And she said to me that she found that quite concerning. But she said to me, you know, "Oh, don't worry about it," and things, you know, trying to probably make sure that I was like staying positive and things, which is great, because I kind of needed it. Skip forward to around 4:15 by the time I'd had a scan and I'd spoken to the consultant. The consultant, by the time she had came around, couldn't feel the baby's head anymore down there. Even though the two previous midwives in the morning could, the consultant couldn't. She had no idea where his head was. So she was very happy to do a bedside scan, things like that. She came around, did the bedside scan, and it turns out the baby's head was fully engaged, and she said she was surprised, but it would explain why she wasn't able to feel his head at all, because he was just so in there. And yeah, seemed all kind of promising at that point, because his position was fine. Like he had his back almost completely at my front, so basically that's the like ideal position for labor. They don't want back to back, they want back to front, if that makes any sense. And she could feel that his legs were kind of here, like limbs and stuff, because he was kicking over on this side, and his back all the way down was here. So she was quite happy. She did say to me though that she was concerned about his size, and she said to me that she was concerned because she wasn't able to measure his weight or anything on this bedside scanner, because she's not like a specialist in that, is what she kind of said to me. She just kind of can do emergency scans. So she said to me that I could go home because there wasn't an emergency to keep me there. She said, but she would have preferred for me to get a second opinion from a specialist on Monday for presentation and growth. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I haven't got any plans, because the option was kind of on me, and I kind of was like, why are you putting this option on me? Because I don't know what's best. And I just kind of said, which one do you think I should do? And she said to me, if I were you, then we'll just book you accommodation, because there's accommodation buildings just outside the hospital. And she said, if I were you, I would book accommodation, and we're going to see you over the weekend up until Monday, get a specialist scan, and get a doctor to give you an opinion. So I was like, okay, but everything's fine. And she went, everything's okay. So that was cool with me. I told my partner that we were staying in town for a couple nights, because this was Saturday and I couldn't have a scan till Monday, and we had to figure out the pets, but otherwise everything was kind of cool. So yeah, I was told then to go in on Sunday for 11 o'clock, pretty sure it was 11 o'clock, and just get another CTG monitor, check baby's position again, things like that. Jump to 26th of October on, you know, Monday 26th of October, and it is now 5 to 5 in the morning, and I woke up and I honestly thought I wet myself, and I was very nervous and thought, oh, has my waters just gone? So I got up, went to the toilet, realised it wasn't quite as graphic as this is. I wasn't quite as wet as I thought, but when I was laying in bed I definitely thought maybe I had to like weed myself a little bit. I phoned them and kind of was like, I think my waters have gone, but I wasn't convinced. I thought maybe I had just weed myself a little bit, because like I'm over 40 weeks now, like there's a high chance that I am going to weed myself a little. So the lady at the ward said to me, come in at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's no point walking over in the dark on your own. She said just go back to sleep for a couple hours, make sure you have a big thick pad on, and we'll see you at 8 in the morning and just check that everything's okay. So I thought, great, I will see you at 8 in the morning on Monday. Went on over, and the same midwife that I'd seen on Saturday, we're gonna give this midwife a name, Red. We're gonna call her Red, because she has red hair and she was lovely, so we're gonna reference her to Red. But Red was on Monday morning, and she said to me, oh, hi, hello. Got me in, put me on CTG, stuff like that. Asked me about any more fluids and stuff, and I said, honestly, I think I've just wet myself, and I just got really concerned. I said, because since then, the pad is dry after going to sleep, and I'm not releasing any fluid when I walk, cough, nothing like that. So they obviously wanted to check me still, they weren't concerned. They said that's kind of great, no problem. And yeah, so Red came around while I was on the CTG and said that obviously she wanted to check, since I was in, she wanted to check my bump again, and she had a student with her, so it was good for the student to kind of have like a look around and stuff and feel about. And it was quite interesting because Andrew had just woke up, so you just see this like foot start here and like push all the way across my stomach. So I basically was waiting for the time of my scan because they knew I was in there, so they weren't going to phone me personally. They were just going to phone the ward and say we can see her at this time. So I had to wait on the ward with the CTG going, just for whatever reason, I don't know. I had the CTG going at this point, and then I heard the receptionist, who was hardly quiet. This is one where like you couldn't not hear what she was saying, and she was booking me accommodation again for a further 2 days, and she said Sapphire and her partner for 2 days in accommodation, which is where I'm at just now. We got 2 single rooms. This is my room, and Luke's got one literally right next door. And I kind of was like, oh, I thought I was gonna go home today. Like, I was really confused. I wasn't really being told very much, because in my head, baby's presenting well, baby's head down, people are feeling he's engaged, CTG is fine, I'm having somewhat contractions on the monitor, because I was still having regular contractions, couldn't feel them, but I was having them. My urine was fine. I had realistically no reason in my head to why they were booking me for another 2 days in accommodation. What can you do? So I asked the midwife, Red, what was happening. I was like, she said to me, is there anything I can get you? Do you want a cup of tea? She says, we're just waiting for a time for your scan. And I said to her, I was like, oh, I heard them say my name, booking Kyle Court, for me and my partner. Is there a reason? And she said to me, I'll be honest with you, we don't have a plan yet because you have to get a scan and the doctor's going to discuss with you some options. What? And said, but it looks like you're either going to be induced or there's going to be a plan made for you. Plan made with you sort of idea, sorry. And then it kind of hit me that I'm not going home without a baby this week. And I was not expecting it because I kind of didn't want to be induced, because I wanted to, one, feel the natural progression of labour, and two, I've read a lot that inductions are actually somewhat more painful than natural labour because you just slam in them hormones through an IV and things like that, and tablets and things in your body, and it's better if it is natural. So I was kind of starting to get a bit devastated, and I was thinking of my birth plan and wanting a water birth and things, and I was thinking, I really didn't want a traumatic birth considering I'm only having one child. So why does it sound like I'm gonna have anything but my birth plan? And I kind of started getting really nervous, but I had to wait for my scan. So Red comes back and she said, we got you a scan for 11:20 in the morning. You can go back to your room for a couple hours, because it was only like 9:30 at this time. And she said to me, it's only about 9:30 at this time. Go home for a little bit, like your room, do what you want, and we'll see you again at 11:20. Go for your scan and then come back to ward, blah blah blah, and we'll see you then. And I thought, okay, what can you do? Still trying to stay relatively positive, because I didn't want to dwell on something that probably won't happen, right? So come back, had a shower, went for my scan, and the scan came back with baby was head down. He was presenting well, is what they said. He kind of gone back to that helpful position of being back to front, legs over here, back down here, and then head. And she then took the growth and said that he was just over the 97th percentile. So I'm gonna put a picture right here. This is my growth chart throughout my pregnancy. The X's are my fundal measurement, which is the one that they take with a tape measure, and the circles are the estimated weight by scan, just in case it doesn't focus very well. The one that is just past my due date is saying that the baby is back just over the 97th percentile. So my first growth scan was on the 97th, my second growth scan he was on the 90th, and then the one that I had yesterday was just over the 97th, which gave an amazing result of 9 pounds 4 ounces. And I kind of sat there and was like, oh wow, that is pretty big. But this lady on the scan said, I want to make it very clear though, I could be off by a pound because he could easily be 10 pounds 4. She said, don't get me wrong, he could be 8 pounds 4, but he is, I think, on the larger scale. She said, because the scans are obviously not accurate. They can't just say to you, you're going to have a 9 pound 4 baby and you pop out a 6 pounder. Things happen, right? But it definitely looked like he was, you know, you could even look at me and just know when I was laying back a little bit that that's a big baby in there. There's not like a 6 pound baby in there. I wouldn't be so lucky for me to have only one child and for it to be a 6 pounder. It was like this 9 pound 4 baby that could be upwards of 10 pounds. So that's great. So yeah, basically big baby. So I went back to the ward and obviously was going to see Red because Red was on shift obviously still. And she gave me my internal, but she tried to perform a stretch and sweep. She could feel the baby's head, which was so strange when you're laying there and she's like, oh, I can feel baby's head, and you can feel that they're inside of you, but you can't feel the baby's head. And yeah, that was quite interesting. And she said to me, no, I'm not able to do the stretch and sweep. I didn't really get any details on why, probably a good thing, don't know. But she said to me she was unable to do a stretch and sweep. So I went back to the waiting room and then ended up getting called into the ward a bit to get into bed waiting for the doctor. And the doctor came round. She said, I've had a look at your scan and your baby is very large, especially considering, she said, he is over the 97th percentile, which I knew at this point. And she said to me, I'd like to discuss with you risks of all 3 options, and it is up to you which one you want to go for. And she was very busy actually. You could see her, like, I want to say pager, but I don't know if it's a pager because I only want to say pager because of fire brigade stuff with me and my partner, so I don't know if it's a pager, but she was getting called off to the labour ward a lot and stuff, so she kind of had to like run through it with me quickly. But she said to me, you have 3 options. We can either send you home, is what she said. Whether I actually would have gotten sent home or here, I don't know. She said we can either send you away and you can wait for labour to start, she said, but there is risks because you live so far away. Then she said, or we induce you and we can keep an eye on you. She said, but with these 2, she said the highest risk that I'm concerned about looking at your body and looking at the way baby is positioned and stuff, and looking at his size and just all these other things. Again, I'm paraphrasing all of these conversations because it's so much to remember, which is why I've wrote down everything. But she said the biggest risk that she's worried about was shoulder dystocia, something like that, where basically baby gets stuck in my pelvis. And that, if you basically don't know, like I had no idea, but basically if baby gets stuck, there is a huge possibility that he will not get enough oxygen, and that could cause things like cerebral palsy and other things, basically because he's not got oxygen to the brain while he's, you know, got to develop. It also means that he could come out quite bruised, stuff like that. And I said to her, if that was to happen, how would I deliver him? And she said, well, there's multiple different things we could do. She said, there's still obviously the risk before that even happening of a ventouse or a forceps delivery, which is the most common for big babies. And then if shoulder dystocia happens, it can go 1 or 2 ways. She said we could put your legs up really high. She said we would hit a buzzer, a bunch of people would come in the room with staff ready to take the baby away if something went wrong, worst case scenario. And she said to me, you would basically have your legs pushed up. We would try and move your position to see if the baby's position would move on its own very quickly. But if not, she said most cases they don't. She said we have to break the baby's collarbone and break the baby's shoulder and pull their position around to get them out. And she said that is also a risk. And as soon as she said that, because I didn't know that was a thing, I've seen one labour video where someone got their baby stuck, but when they changed mom's position, the lady kind of reached in there, changed mom's position, baby's position slipped, and the baby came out. And that's what I just thought happened all the time with shoulder distortion, but I guess not. And yeah, it turned out that that is what they do in a serious, proper emergency. And she said that there's also the risk that they could induce me, or I go into labour and suddenly labour doesn't progress any further and I would need an emergency C-section. She said it's nothing wrong with you if you do need an emergency C-section, it's just in your best interest. If we needed to do an emergency C-section halfway through labour, it's just, that's the better option, really. So she said to me, and I said to her, I was like, okay, what's the third option then? Because at this time I was kind of sitting there, I was thinking, man, if there's a third option and it looks a bit nicer than putting my baby through this, then I think I need to start weighing up my options. Because if something happened to him in the first couple months of his life, it's him with a broken shoulder or collarbone, because I didn't want to do option 3, which I knew what option 3 was going to be, and it's the one thing that I've been terrified of this entire pregnancy. But I just felt so guilty and kind of selfish that if I said, no, I want to go home and have natural labour, and then something happened to him, I would not forgive myself. And of course, there's the huge possibility again that the scan could be wrong and I could have had a natural labour and everything would have went smoothly. But with my anxiety and things, it just didn't look like that was a good option. The risks outweighed the benefits, or the risks outweighed the positives. And she said to me, the third option is we get you in for a scheduled C-section and you can completely ignore all of that, because obviously there's also the risk of episiotomy, tearing, things like that, me having like pelvic issues as well, and just all these things. She said the third option is a C-section. She said C-sections are not risk-free either. She said, I feel like I'm giving you just 3 sounding negative options. She said, I said to her, what's the risks of a C-section? Because I didn't honestly look into C-sections that much because I'm quite scared of C-sections, to be honest. The thing I said from the beginning to multiple people was, I don't want to be laying in a bed with not feeling anything like this, and my baby being born, and I can't do very much. And especially afterwards, not being able to do very much because I've been in so much pain. So I was kind of scared and I've not looked into C-sections. So I asked her what the risks were for that. And the risks were a lot, as much as they happen, they were a lot more rare or uncommon, is kind of how its brackets were, for things like they sometimes can cut the baby's head, they can obviously accidentally cut something in you. Obviously your uterus pushes most of your organs out of the way, but not all the time. There's risks obviously of mum passing away, things like that. There's just all these other risks. But she said to me, with everything that she read out, she was saying to me, this one's uncommon, this one's rare, this one's very rare, this one, she said, I've never seen happen in my whole of working. Like hysterectomy was another one. Yeah, just a bunch of stuff like that. And she then said to me, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, she said, because obviously this happened a bit quicker than I'm explaining it, but I'm just processing everything that was being said at this time. But she said to me, I need to go off to the labour ward, they're buzzing me, sort of idea, but I'll give you a couple minutes to think and I'll come back and see what your final decision is. And I said to her, well, I think I know, but that would be helpful, thank you. So that was fine, and she went away for a while, and I had a very tearful moment in my bed, and I phoned Luke and I said, these are my options, these are the risks with each of my options. I'm stuck. I'm very stuck. And he just said to me, what do you think would be the best for you and for him? And I said to him, I think I want to have a C-section. Now, I say want very loosely because this entire time I have put my birth plan under the C-section category. I do not want a C-section unless it's an emergency, because I did not want a C-section unless it was an emergency. But I have now further changed that on my birth plan, and I wrote down some preferences for a C-section. And I said to him, I think I'm just going to go for a C-section because if something happened to him in the middle of labour, I'm going to feel horrendous for the rest of his life, or my life, or anything. Because I have a very guilty conscience anyway, and I didn't want to have to carry that guilt along with me for anything that could possibly even happen to him, because I'm too scared to go and have a C-section. Because most of the risks that they actually label out to you, that are a bit more common than the rare ones, like the ones that are under the brackets of uncommon, is things like not being able to have a successful VBAC. Like, people have VBACs, but it's not always the case. And there's risks of, if you get pregnant again, you could open your wound internally, like the stitching of your womb, I think it was. Basically, it's more, I noticed there's more risks in a C-section for mum if she wants to have multiple kids, more than the baby itself, and more than something like needing a hysterectomy. That's extremely rare. So considering I don't want to have any more kids, and I have said that from the beginning, so maybe I just had this sixth sense that I was just going to have a C-section, who knows. So when I kind of weighed up that option, I was like, you know what, the recovery is going to be hard, the recovery is going to be quite painful, but I'm going to have a safe, happy baby after it. And I ultimately decided in my mind, as much as I'm petrified right now, I think I'm going to just have a C-section, scheduled C-section. And I kind of went through a proper, quick grieving moment of my ideal, beautiful birth with hypnobirthing and water and everything. And I kind of had a moment to grieve that. The doctor came back literally minutes after that and said to me, have you confirmed your decision? And I said to her, yes. I said, I think, looking at the risks and things, I'd rather have a scheduled C-section. And she said to me, perfect. She said, I'll be honest. She said, that is the one that I think would be in your best interest. Genuinely, just because of baby size. She said, we don't normally just give away C-sections. We only do them for a reason. She said, but this, you know, it could be quite traumatic. There's a lot of risks if you have a vaginal delivery. So, you know, it's in your best interest. So I agreed. She said, I'll try and see if I can get you booked in for this week. If not, and she said, if not, I will get you in for next week. And then I started going, oh shit, what if I go to labor before then? But she came back and she said, we can get you in Thursday. You know, I think she booked me in first on Thursday for my C-section. And she said, and we'll get you a pre-op either tomorrow or Wednesday. I was like, great. Happened so quick but so slow at the same time, and it's been so manic but so planned at the same time. And yeah, it's just been everything I didn't want, but at the same time, what can you do? So yeah, my C-section is booked for Thursday, and pre-ops today, and yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add to this part one of my baby's birth story. I don't know how else, like my pregnancy story from beginning to end, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of where everything is at the moment. And I wanted to make a video, one, to rant, so I'm sorry if this video is incredibly long or if it's choppy. It just means that I have deleted parts out because I was blabbering too much. But yeah, sometimes it's good to just get these things off the top of your chest because everyone that I've told I'm having a C-section is like, oh, you'll be fine though, it's great, you know, oh, that's so good, I can't wait for Thursday. And I'm like, I'm scared. I'm genuinely scared. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I planned. But it also is what I wanted, and it is what I just planned. Again, I'm very confusing. It's all very confusing. But at least it's scheduled, and I know now, because I have still not gone into labor, because of that, at least now I know the date and when I'm going to see my baby boy, and I'm very happy about that. And I'm trying to focus on things like the silver lining of it all, that I don't have to worry about going for my first pee, in the sense that it ain't gonna sting like 1,000 paper cuts. And it also means that I'm not going to have to worry in the sense about an episiotomy or anything like that. And it also means that I have a birthday for my son. So I'm just kind of like trying to focus on all these small things that are positives, and just kind of rest until then, because I only have today and tomorrow, and then I'm having him. So I did actually have Luke go home today, which is why I recorded this video, and he's picking up just some things that, because I packed my hospital bag. If you haven't watched my hospital bag, by the way, I think you probably have, because it's one of the slightly more popular videos on here, but I did get Luke to go home and pick me up just some extra things, and I did get him to pick me up what was originally in my postpartum basket, but now I'm going to get him to bring it in because I'm going to be in for longer. Some Tenna underwear, the ones that are absorbent on their own, just for like times where I'm like sleeping or something like that. And I got him to pick me up some like change of clothes, because we've been here for nights on end, and we're not city people, we live an hour and a half away, so this is a new PJ set that I bought in Tesco's because I ran out of clothes. But he's coming through with clothes, and just some extra things from my hospital bag. And yeah, so that's kind of where everything is at the moment. And yeah, that's kind of everything for now, and just a large update on the end of my pregnancy. Yeah, I love you guys very much. Thank you, by the way, for everyone that has sent me the support on Instagram. I have been uploading on my Instagram story updates about how I'm feeling emotionally and what's happening. So if you're following my Instagram, then hey, how are you doing? Thank you for the support, especially if you sent me a message. I really appreciate it, genuinely. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, and the next video will definitely have my little baby Andrew, or not so little. But either way, it's gonna have my little boy here, and yeah, I will see you then, and I'm super excited to see him. So bye guys.